Start.
Good evening and welcome into Tennessee Volunteers live on the Voice of College Football Network. Tucker Harlan and Jordan Binkley with you on this fine Monday evening. Hope all of you guys are doing well. We're happy to have you along with us for the ride. If you're new here, please like, share, and subscribe to Tennessee at the Voice of College Football on YouTube. Again, we are live every Monday at 8 Eastern Time on YouTube. Really helps us out if you subscribe. Really helps you get close to all the great Tennessee football content that you enjoy as well. Hope you all had a very nice weekend. I know I did. I hope you guys stayed out of the cold weather. I know our buddy Jackson Johnson likes to tell everyone to stay out of the cold weather, but we mean it this time around. It was 16 degrees, I think, at one point on Sunday, and it was about like that again today. I know I talk a little bit about the weather a lot, but that's freakishly cold for this time of year. I certainly don't enjoy it, but we hope you stayed out of that. But overall, no, it was a good weekend. I went to bed Saturday night, woke up on Sunday, and Fernando Mendoza was the Heisman winner. So good news for the Tennessee fan base that Vanderbilt, despite all of the things that they are claiming to have accomplished this season, they will not have a Heisman Trophy winner, and they will not have a college football playoff appearance, despite going 10-2.
And that's their best season ever.
Yeah. Very good news for all of us in Tennessee land that Vanderbilt did not get any of those things. And Diego Pavia just proving everybody right about him, too, that doesn't like him. I saw some interesting stuff being floated around there about, just the character aspect of this influencing votes. And I think a big part of that maybe has to do with the fact not that Pavia is unlikable necessarily, but because you have a guy in Fernando Mendoza who is so likable that you're just more inclined to vote for him when that's the case. Like, fine, you can embrace the villain role if you want, but it's not worked out well for him in this stretch, and they may beat up on Iowa, who knows, and good for them if they do, but they're only getting a 10-win season out of this. They're not getting anything more.
No. And it's just a funny situation a little bit, what's going on with Pavia. But, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised that the voters factored in, like, all of his off-the-field comments into it and stuff, because, I mean, it's pretty clear that they're, like, exact opposites. Like, Mendoza, I mean, well-spoken in all his post-game interviews. I mean, the dude's definitely going to have a career in media whenever he's done with football. And then Pavia has got the chip on his shoulder, always something to prove. And, that kind of mentality works. You can be a little bit of an a-hole a little bit if you're one of the best. I mean, Michael Jordan, I mean, look at how messed up that dude was at times. Like, we've all heard the trash talking stories, but Michael Jordan backed it up more often than not. And not saying that Diego Pavia hasn't backed up a lot, but I think many people would agree that he's not at that same tier of athlete as like a Michael Jordan or like a Peyton Manning or someone like that.
So good news for all of us as the weekend concludes. TriStar TN says, I do think Pavia should have won the Heisman. That's an interesting debate. Here's the thing that I've noticed. This whole vote for the Heisman, like among the voters, it was not particularly close from the numbers that I'm seeing. Like first place votes in particular, Pavia had a ton of second place votes, but if you go back and look at the first place votes, a lot of them are for Fernando Mendoza, and way more than you would think. So I don't know what the voters take into account. Character may be a part of it. I have no idea. And again, specifically for this case with Fernando Mendoza, I think that is a big part of it. Just the fact that he is such a nice guy and came from a similar background. So, but again, good news. You're not having to. It's not about who the best player is. 1997 as a prime example.
No, and it never has been. I mean, that's where the NFL comes into factor. More often than not, like MVP, your most valuable player. There's a reason why the Heisman Trophy is not called MVP. I mean, it seems like most of the time Heisman Trophy has to be with one of the better players on one of the better teams. And if that's like by definition what they want to vote on, then that would be Fernando Mendoza in this case, because I don't think many people would argue that Vanderbilt was the best team. Love it or hate it, it seems like that's how the Heisman Trophy goes. But maybe there is an argument he could have won the Maxwell.
So that was good news for Tennessee. And there was some other good news this past week as well. The last time we were gathered here on this show on Monday, we were discussing Tim Banks and how he had been fired from Tennessee. We were firing up the hot boards on this very show. And I believe it was within 48 hours, Tennessee made a decision on who it would hire as its next defensive coordinator. And Josh Heupel swung big with this one. He brings in Jim Knowles, the former Penn State defensive coordinator. Of course, he was at Ohio State the previous 3 seasons, helped guide the Buckeyes to a national championship, worked at Oklahoma State for a few seasons before that. And then for quite a while, actually, he was at Duke. And if you're looking for Tennessee ties with this one, look no further than former Tennessee offensive coordinator David Cutcliffe as the coach that he worked under. That's the one big Tennessee tie with Jim Knowles and Tennessee. But Jordan, just picking your brain a little bit, thoughts on the Jim Knowles hire from Tennessee?
I am actually very excited about this hire, but I feel like people are going to need to be patient with Jim Knowles because everything that I've read online, his defenses seem to be pretty complex, and it's going to take a second for players to adjust to it. But give him about 2 or 3 seasons, though. I mean, he has a proven track record from taking literally teams that are ranked towards 100 in total defense, similar to how Tennessee is this year. And then being able to bring them to a top 25 caliber defense, but it just takes a little bit of time. But actually, I got 2 fun facts for you that I found out on my research. First of all, do you know who he coached at Western Michigan?
Ooh, who did he coach at Western Michigan? Yeah, I'm struggling a little bit with this one. Gosh, it's got to be some rando that
not really.
No, not a rando. So a guy that did well in the NFL. He's not a rando, but in college, I would not have known who he was. Western Michigan. That had to have been in the 2000s.
It was, I think, around 2003 or something.
2003. 2003. Who would have gone to Western Michigan in 2003? That played defense. You're gonna have to tell me.
Okay, so it was former Titans defensive lineman Jason Babin. He coached Jason Babin.
There it is. Yeah,
and he won.
You said Tennessee Titans. I got it.
Yeah, and he won. Apparently, he won Defensive Player of the Year twice for the MAC conference. And also, here's the second fact. So he was briefly the head coach at Cornell for a little bit. I think it was his first season. His first season as a head coach. He played and only lost by 10 points to the Ryan Fitzpatrick-led Harvard Crimson.
Wow. Yeah, that would have been about right because he would have been there mid-2000s as the head coach. I think I saw 2005 to 2007 was when he coached at Princeton. He's a Princeton alum, too, if I'm not mistaken. So nice to have an Ivy League mind working as your defensive coordinator. There's a certain Ivy League mind that was a strong defensive mind. Also coached at Duke. Who happens to be in the college football playoff right now. So we always like that.
Yeah, so there's a lot of cool things that I saw about Jim Knowles. I'm really excited, but like I said, people are gonna have to be patient with him because if you're expecting Tennessee to have a top 25 defense next season, it's probably not going to be the case. It might be a little bit similar to what we've seen this season, but give him time. I mean, Ohio State had the #1 ranked defense in the year they won the national championship, and I'm pretty sure they only gave 254 yards per game, which is pretty nice right there. So if he can replicate that at Tennessee, it's going to be pretty crazy.
Yeah. So and yes, all of us are impatient with the price increases, especially with
good point.
Being 5 seasons into the Josh Heupel experiment at this point, it's at a point where you need to produce championships now if you're going to keep increasing the prices. So I hate to put that much pressure on the guy, but I think a part of it is you have to consider what he was working with in some of those places. Like Duke, for example. Duke had been dreadful for a long time. I think Steve Spurrier was the last head coach to take them to a bowl game before David Cutcliffe. I could be wrong on that, but they did not go to a bowl game for a long time from the late 80s all the way up till 2012 or 13 with Cutcliffe. So you have to consider what he's working with there. And then Oklahoma State, he took over that job as the defensive coordinator in 2018. Kyler Murray is still playing quarterback for Oklahoma at that point. And at that point in the Big 12, too, everybody is still, let's score 45 to 60 points a game and just outrun everybody. That was the Big 12 that he was going into. And it's Oklahoma State, too. They're not going to have as much talent as, say, in Ohio State, where he coached at last season and the previous seasons before that, where, you're accessing terrific talent there. Now, he's not going to have the talent he had there at Tennessee. We all know that. But, I mean, it's better than what he would have had at Oklahoma State and Duke, I would have to think. Maybe it's similar to Penn State. And, I don't think the collapse was completely on him. I know that, the game against UCLA was not great, but, there's some other things involved in that. You lose Drew Aller for the season. You just feel like you have to part ways with the staff at that point, and they did what they did. So, yes, the numbers aren't great. There's a lot of 40, 50-point games allowed in the first season or however many seasons on the job, particularly at Duke. It took a couple years to get it rolling, but I just think with what he's working with at Tennessee, especially if they're able to keep some of the defensive staff, two guys in particular, and then these recruits in place as well. That's going to be very important for the staff and Knowles in particular going forward. And I've already seen a lot of defensive prospects in this 2027 class voicing their support for Knowles. So you love to see that, and hopefully it's something Tennessee can build off of.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and of course, he did have that great defense with Ohio State. And like I said, he's had a track record of bringing some of these teams to top 25 defenses. But I mean, if he like with Rodney Gardner recruiting and everything and bringing some of these guys in, I mean, he's going to have a phenomenal opportunity to build up some of Tennessee's players because, I mean, Western Michigan, Ohio State, Duke, and Oklahoma State. He coached all of those schools. At each one of them, he coached a player that won Defensive Player of the Year for their conference. So Caleb Downs, of course, probably the best player that he ever coached. I mean, don't really have to say much about him. Arguably the best college football player since he's entered in or since he was there from Alabama. But Babin won it twice at Western Michigan. Jeremy Cash won it at Duke. And then Malcolm Rodriguez won at Oklahoma State. And see, like, in these schools outside of Ohio State do not produce nearly as much talent as Tennessee. So imagine what he can do when he gets his hands on some of these people like TJ White or Braden Rouse or something like that, what he could be able to do with them, or even someone like Ty Redmond. It's going to be really exciting to see what's in store for Tennessee.
Yeah, and it's important to remember, too, with Knowles in particular, that he came up in the coaching ranks as a linebacker coach. I don't know if that means he's going to shuffle William Inge out of there so he can do that. But the fact that he came up through the coaching ranks as a linebackers coach, and if he is able to keep William Inge on staff, that would be very, very good for Tennessee recruiting linebackers. Tennessee's already doing very well there. I've seen more reports of different linebackers looking at Tennessee very intently. Of course, you've got Cooper Witten in this class. It would be big for Tennessee to try and get him as a legacy recruit. There's another legacy recruit in this upcoming class as well, with Kenneth Simon, son of former Tennessee linebacker Kevin Simon, who I believe is on staff right now at Tennessee. And then I saw another one today from Cincinnati who has been on like 7 or 8 visits to Tennessee already. So they're doing a very, very good job recruiting linebackers. It's something we haven't seen from Tennessee in quite some time.
Yeah, and it's exciting too because I mean I feel like a lot of Tennessee's issues was giving up big runs down there, and some of these linebackers can prevent that from happening in the future. I mean, I'm excited seeing all these big name guys come into Tennessee, especially since I mean I feel like the best linebacker cores that I've seen from Tennessee were on poor coaching staffs, like the Kurt Magid and like AJ Johnson era, Darren Kirkland Jr. Like you haven't been seeing that as much from Tennessee as of late. But with the recruiting, with Perlotti getting better, with Spillman getting better, I think Tennessee could have a very dangerous linebacker core in the next couple of seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that could be the case. They were some very good linebacker duos back then. You mentioned Johnson and Majid, Jalen Reese-Maybin's another one I'd throw in there with
Mhm.
Darren Kirkland. I know those two couldn't stay healthy at the same time. That was a bit of a struggle. The first linebacker I vividly remember watching was Herman Lathers. That was
Oh
another fun
yeah.
one back in the day. So yeah, they've done a good job recruiting there, and hopefully this is something that can last because and the other thing that's impressive too about the Jim Knowles hire, something that I should mention, is that some of these defensive minded guys, they don't particularly like coaching for Josh Heupel just because they know what's on the other side with the offense, how the offense operates, which makes it all the more impressive that Josh Heupel was able to swing for the fence and get this hire in Jim Knowles just because he's looked at as one of the best defensive minds in football currently. And when you have a reputation for not having a ton of defensive guys that want to work with you and you're able to do that, that says a lot about you and your evolution as a head coach and your willingness to try some new things.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a huge risk for Knowles too. I mean, because I was seeing that he's 60 years old. I mean, if this doesn't pan out with him in Tennessee, especially with everything that went on Penn State, this might be his last big opportunity, or at least for a while. So it's pretty impressive that he took this risk to come to Tennessee. Gets me even more excited because he seems to be confident in himself by taking this job. So it's going to be an interesting sight to watch these next couple seasons, see how this defense comes together. Because if Tennessee can put together a top 10 offense, which they do year in and year out, and then add a top 10 defense on top of that, we're talking about some scariness right there. As long as the game management works itself out, Tennessee should be really good.
Yeah, that's the big piece you have to focus on at this point is the game management. Not doubting Heupel's ability as a play caller, but you panic a little bit when Tennessee gets in a 2-minute drill just after having watched the last 3 seasons of Tennessee football. But again, great news. Tennessee gets Jim Knowles, and hopefully this will be the start of a really prosperous run as a defensive coordinator at Tennessee. Of course, William Inge will serve as the interim in the bowl game, but Knowles will take over full time beginning in 2026. So that was not the only news we got last week. There's some other news in regard to 2026, some news that I think will excite everybody. And that is the reveal of the 2026 Tennessee football schedule. That was on Thursday night. We did a live show over on the SEC channel here at the Voice of College Football Network. Y'all can go check that out. But we have not really gotten to sit down and discuss Tennessee's football schedule in 2026. We knew who the opponents were going in. We knew about the non-conference games and, of course, taking away that fourth non-conference game, which is pretty big. And I think a big part of the reason why Tennessee upped the ticket prices, the season ticket prices in 2026. But it should make for a more fun season. You're going to have 5 SEC home games this time around. But this schedule, it's pretty intense. They're all pretty intense if you look across the SEC. Like, for any casuals out there, and we welcome casuals if you would like to come, expand your Tennessee football fandom. We're here to help you do that. But some casuals would look at that and say, my goodness, that is an incredibly difficult schedule. I can name you like 4 or 5 SEC schedules next season that are far more difficult than Tennessee's schedule in 2026, which is the insane part of this whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely going to be seeing some better games now that the schedule is expanded to have more SEC games, and I'm really excited about this next season. So I've picked 3 games that I'm most excited about. Do you have any 3 games that you're excited about?
I feel like if I were to do this, we would all pick the same game. So I'm just going to let you say yours, Jordan, because 4 of the games on the schedule for next season are teams that Tennessee played this season. So that really only limits the options to what? Maybe 4 different games. I guess it's not there's not a ton for me to pick, but go ahead, Jordan. Tell me what your 3 favorite games are for next season. I have a feeling I know what 2 of them will be.
Well, I mean, the easiest route that you could go to is, of course, every year it's exciting watching Tennessee play against Alabama. The Vanderbilt game is going to mean even more, especially what happened this season. But neither of those games are on my list. The 3 games that I'm most excited for are Auburn, first and foremost, because we get to see Tennessee battle against their old offensive coordinator and Alex Golis. Not to mention, they also got Cody Burns on staff now, and they added Tim Banks, surprisingly. So that's going to be interesting. You got to imagine that all those coaches are going to have chips on their shoulder, especially Tim Banks. He's definitely going to be putting in extra work for that game. And it'll be interesting to see how Heupel's offense compares against Golish's. But outside of the Auburn game, I think every Tennessee fan's excited about this one. The Mustard Bottle 2.0 game with Lane Kiffin and LSU. And I'm really excited about this game because all the optics are on Ole Miss right now because it's recent news that he left there. And trust me, I think Ole Miss is going to give them lots of problems when he has to go back there. But very underrated in terms of national media will be that Tennessee LSU game because I think some of the hatreds reopened for Lane Kiffin after this whole situation. There we go, right there. Everyone's going to be coming prepared with this golf balls and mustard bottles. I wouldn't, and especially if Lane Kiffin does the same thing that he did in that Ole Miss game with the 40 players going down with fake injuries, it is going to be some chaos in Knoxville. And of course, the third final game, the one that I'm personally most excited for, the battle of the UTs, Tennessee and Texas. Now, I'm excited about this game, not only because, Texas likes to claim themselves the real UT. They stole the UT logo. They put a skinnier version of the Power T logo on their baseball helmets, and their colors are orange and white. If that doesn't infuriate you enough, I still think that there's potential for a future rivalry. Tennessee hasn't added new rival in a while. Some people try to argue Georgia snuck in there, but I think that if Tennessee plays Texas consistently, which we'll see with the new schedules changing, but if Tennessee starts to play against Texas and have really good games against them, I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up becoming a rivalry game, and that could be really fun for fans as well.
Okay, so you hit one that I knew for sure you were going to get. There's one that I thought you might mention that you didn't, probably because it's not going to be in Neyland Stadium. But I'm really looking forward to seeing Tennessee play at Texas A&M. Like, I didn't think. Obviously, that's a game that I don't know if Tennessee can win right now, just with how good Texas A&M is and the fact that Marcel Reed is probably going to be back there next season. But it's always interesting to go, far away to some of those games, like Texas A&M in particular. Oklahoma kind of has that same feel, but Texas A&M is one of the coolest environments in the SEC, and absolutely a game that I'm looking forward to seeing Tennessee play in. But I'm glad you mentioned Auburn and LSU too. Like, those are two opponents. Like, Auburn used to be a huge deal for Tennessee back 30, 40 years ago, but conference realignment screwed all that up. And then LSU, of course, you got to love it when Tennessee and LSU get together. So let's go through the schedule. Just talk about this thing a little bit. So Tennessee is opening the season up with Furman on, what is it, September 6th, maybe September 5th. It's the first Saturday of September. Okay, yeah, because they're not playing in August this year. I'd rather them play that game there than, say, November whatever, the second and last week of the season, or like what they did with New Mexico State this year in the second weekend of November. Like, I'm not, or third weekend of November, whatever it was. I'm not a fan of that. I really hate it when Tennessee plays games late in the season. In fact, Tennessee's only played 2 games like that late in the season in recent memory, and I don't think they have been a traditional participant in Cupcake Saturday, which I'm appreciative of. Like, the only 2 games I can remember being at that point in the season against, say, an FCS or Group of 5 team were South Alabama in 2021 and then UTEP in 2024. Because for a long time, I think it was Kentucky, then Vanderbilt. Then it flipped around to Vanderbilt, Kentucky the last 2 weeks of the season. Beginning of 2014, running into 2019, it was Missouri then Vanderbilt. Skipping ahead to 2022, that was the abysmal South Carolina game. 2023 was Georgia at home. And then this year it was Florida. So Tennessee, not much of a participant in Cupcake Saturday. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate them knocking this game out early, even though, that's not going to get out the crazies for the opener, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not going to be a super exciting game, or at least we all hope that it's not going to be super exciting, considering, I mean, that means that Tennessee probably wouldn't be playing too well in the game. But I think that it's good that Tennessee's playing Furman again, first game of the season too, because I mean, we don't even know who Tennessee's starting quarterback's going to be next year, and this could be a good opportunity to get his feet wet a little bit, whether or not it's McIntyre or it could be still Aguilar or maybe a quarterback from the transfer portal. Who knows? But whoever it's going to be, they need to get some quality reps in there, especially playing 9 SEC games in the season. You know that schedule is going to get tough at some point, and it's good to get that experience while you can. And Georgia Tech's probably not going to be a slouch either. So give a little preparation for that.
Yeah, good transition there, Jordan. Georgia Tech is the second game of the season in Bobby Dodd Stadium. I guess you could call that the Bobby Dodd Classic down there in Atlanta. And no, you're right. They're not going to be a slouch. I think Brent Key is a terrific football coach. He's doing some good things at Georgia Tech. They're kind of like Vanderbilt Light right now. That's an institution that is known more for its academics than anything else. Traditionally, very much a little brother school to another in-state rival, but they have been able to manufacture some winning seasons, and they're going to have a chance to win 10 games this season if they can get it done in their bowl game against BYU. But you look at what they're losing this season. Haynes King is out of eligibility. That guy's my age, so he's not going to play another year of college football. And then they lost a good offensive coordinator in Buster Faulkner to Florida. So, again, not a slouch, but it will not be as difficult of a game as it would have been had Tennessee played Georgia Tech this year, I don't think.
Yeah, it probably. I'm kind of glad Tennessee didn't play Georgia Tech this year based on how this season went, because who knows if Tennessee would have even gotten the job done. I mean, I agree that I think it will be a easier next season, but we'll see if Brent Key can pull out some schemes or something like that, because I know Haynes King, like you said, I mean, he's been like the face of the team for the past 2 seasons. I mean, had back-to-back close games with Georgia. So you know that guy's a dog and he's a competitor. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it could either be a close game potentially based on Brent Key's coaching abilities, or it could be a statement win for Tennessee where they really put up some points. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
So moving on down, Kennesaw State is your third game of the season. Shout out Jerry Mack, former Tennessee football running backs coach. Do not sleep on the Owls. They just won Conference USA this year, and Jerry Mack's first year on the job, they just offered him an extension. He is not in the mix for any head coaching vacancies at the moment. I don't know the status of their quarterback for next season. If anything, this reminds me a little bit of that game Tennessee played against UTSA a few years ago in 2023, where UTSA was actually pretty good going into the season. It was a game that, sorry to rip on the casuals again, but maybe the casuals didn't think as much of, because they were unfamiliar with the Roadrunners at the time. But no, Owls are playing very good football down there in Kennesaw.
Yeah, I like that comparison between UTSA, because I'm pretty sure the year prior they won like 10 plus games or something like that. So I was a little bit more concerned going into that UTSA game as I would otherwise be. But yeah, that Kennesaw State game is going to be really exciting. I mean, it's pretty impressive what Mac's been able to do, just coming as a positions coach and then end up becoming the head coach of, I mean, still a power or a group of 4 or group of 5, I guess now, school. But I mean, like, yeah, didn't he I think he only lost like 1 game this season, right? And was like almost in contention for the playoffs.
They lost to Wake Forest. I forget who else they lost to, because I don't think that was their only loss. The Wake Forest game was close. That was, I think, the season opener, and they had a chance to win that game late, but they came up short. But let's see, looking here, yeah, they're 10-3 overall. Losses were to Jacksonville State 35-26 on the road. That's November 15th. And then the other one, okay, Kurt Signetti, Indiana. That was the other one.
Oh, okay.
So 2 of their losses are against Power 4 teams. Only one loss in Conference USA play, and they won Conference USA this year.
Yeah, and then plus, Max already got familiarity with Tennessee, considering that he was on the staff there. So I mean, he might pull some tricks out that no one's expecting. But I mean, still, you would like to think that Tennessee would win the game comfortably, but you never know, especially with how good Kennesaw State was this year.
All right, moving on. You've got the SEC home opener against Texas that Jordan mentioned already. I like that this game is the opener. I'm going to reserve one criticism for later on in this little schedule breakdown, but it should be really fun to see the UTs play in the first game of SEC play, and that should draw a very, very nice crowd. I think a lot of people are excited for that because it's not a traditional matchup, but it's a matchup that I think a lot of us have been waiting to see for a while just because of all the common threads with the color scheme and what the universities refer to themselves as.
Yeah, and where is it at here? Yeah, TriStar was talking about the price increases with the tickets and everything. I imagine that game next season is going to be ungodly, like maybe even like national championship level prices out there. Because I've seen some expensive ones in the past, like when in 2022 when Tennessee had pulled off the miracle against Alabama. I remember looking at tickets leading up to the game, seeing the prices on there, and I think the cheapest ones were like $700, $800, and that's just like for nosebleeds. I would imagine that there would be a similar case here with this Texas game, considering because I don't think Tennessee's played against Texas since like 1957 or something like that. So it's a long time coming for this matchup. And like I said, like Texas fans talk so much crap about being the real UT and all that stuff. Well, I guess we'll have to see how that goes next year. But one other aspect I didn't think about until just now, I mean, Arch Manning's probably going to be their starting quarterback next year,
he
too.
will. Yeah. Yeah, so he will.
Because he hasn't, did he say that he was going to stay yet? Or has he made anything about the NFL draft?
I feel like it's fairly well known that he's going to stay at this point, and he's playing better football. Like he was thrown into a tough start there to begin the season, but he's beginning to find a little bit of a rhythm. And they played Michigan in this bowl game, and if you've been following Michigan football lately, I would think Texas is going to do just fine in the bowl game.
Yeah, I would say so too, man. That Michigan stuff, freaking crazy.
Poor crazy. TJ, man. TJ's going through it over there on the Michigan channel. He and John both. But yeah, that's going to be a really fun game next season. Arch coming to the place that his uncle was or became a legend at, I should say. Should be a really, really fun matchup between Tennessee and Texas in the 4th week of the season. 5th week of the season, you got Auburn at home. Again, we mentioned this already. Interesting just for the fact that you've got Alex Golesh, Cody Burns, and Tim Banks all on the Auburn staff now coming into Neyland Stadium, which should be pretty fun. And you have to imagine, like Auburn, so far, they've lost some guys at this point, but if they are able to hold together this recruiting class that Hugh Freeze put together just because of everything DJ Durkin's been able to do, then I would think they're going to be looking at a pretty good team next year. And it's going to be a tough fight in Neyland Stadium between these two teams. Because I'm trying to think, Tennessee would have beaten them in 1999 in Neyland Stadium, and that would have been the last time that they beat Auburn in Neyland because they played a couple times since then. I don't know how many times they played in the 2000s. I know they had at least one loss at home in the 2000s to Auburn. And then there was that one under Butch Jones in 2013 where Auburn had damn near 500 rush yards in the game, and they won like 55-23. That was the kick six season and Miracle at Jordan Hare season. But Tennessee needs a win over Auburn at home badly.
Yeah, yes, they do. And Auburn, that's going to be a fun game too, because like you said before, there used to be a little bit of a rivalry there between Tennessee and Auburn back in the day, especially when Reggie White and company took down Bo Jackson. But that's going to be a really exciting game to watch. I'm in agreement with you too that Auburn could be a deadly team next year, especially because Alex Golesh is going to get the most out of his offenses. I mean, very similar to how Josh Heupel's been. And like I've said earlier, I mean, he's going to have familiarity with how Tennessee does things, and that could be a problem. But also on the flip side, I think Josh Heupel, I mean, this could be a game that he has circled and knows that this is an important win because you can't lose. You can't lose to a bunch of your former assistants, especially with all the criticisms that went on this year. It wouldn't be a good look for Josh Heupel to lose to Auburn. So I would imagine that he's going to prepare like crazy for this game and is going to come out trying to strike quick against Auburn. So I think it could be a high scoring, fun game to watch.
Yeah, should be a very fun game to watch if Alex Golish indeed has that offense humming. Moving on, first road game of SEC play is at Arkansas. We saw Arkansas play Tennessee this season. It's going to be a different looking Arkansas team next season with Ryan Silverfield. I know they did some good things on the recruiting trail, at least leading up to signing day, to try and lock in some commitments. Don't know what the offense is going to look like next year. I would imagine there's a little bit of a talent overhaul just with a new staff coming in, but that's all expected. Tennessee needs to get a win out there too. They have not won out there in a very long time. I couldn't tell you the last time they've won out there, honestly, because I know it has to have been at least sometime in the early 1990s is the last time they would have won out there, right? Because the only win between 1998 and 2025 was the 2007 game. Because they lost out there in 2006, and I know the 1996 game was a thorn in Tennessee's side, or the 1999 game was, I should say. But they've not done well against Arkansas here post 1998. They got to get that figured out. So maybe it's like the light version of what Tennessee winning in the Swamp was this year.
But yeah, I'm looking at it right now. The last time Tennessee's won in Fayetteville was in 2001, so that has been quite some time.
So it has been done, but it's been a minute. That's the one.
And Tennessee got over the hump last year. I mean, because we talked about it earlier in the season. How, I mean, Arkansas's kind of been like Florida light to Tennessee from like the West, or formerly known as the Western Division of the SEC. So, I mean, it's good Tennessee got that monkey off their backs this season. Hopefully they can continue it to next season too, because Arkansas, I've never understood it, man. I've never understood why Tennessee struggled with them of all schools. It's just never really made sense. I mean, considering the backgrounds of both these two schools and the fact that Tennessee is one of the SEC blue bloods. And then Arkansas just came into the SEC and it just had success against Tennessee. So Tennessee can't let that happen any longer. Tennessee needs to get back-to-back wins against Arkansas and turn this thing around.
You all know what happens on the third Saturday of October. Not going to elaborate too much on that one. Game following that, and we've not discussed this one yet, South Carolina in Williams-Brice Stadium. Lenoris Sellers is returning for another year at South Carolina, and he's got an offensive coordinator in Kendall Briles who – I think the fans get tired of him after a while, but overall he does a nice job with big mobile quarterbacks. See KJ Jefferson, that was the one good offensive coordinator he had before Enos came in there and ruined the entire thing out there at Arkansas. But we'll see how those two mesh at South Carolina. They have talent on that roster. Beamer recruits well. One of my biggest takeaways from the reveal on Thursday was if Tennessee wins on the third Saturday of October, this is awful placement for that game, because that means if you beat Alabama and you're smoking cigars in the stadium and you go to South Carolina, we all know what happened the last time Tennessee went to South Carolina. It did not go well. Tennessee has not won there much recently. I know there was the win in 2020, but that was a COVID crowd. And then 2014 when Tennessee won that game with Josh Dobbs in overtime where they came back and won 45-42. But at that point in the season, I think, the Shane Beamer hot seat stuff is very real. You have to take that into account. And if things are not going well by that point, who knows? He could already be out of a job the way things went this season. But there's also a very real chance that he turns it around. He never does well when you expect him to do well, and he never does poorly when you expect him to do poorly.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is a game that's ingrained PTSD into most Tennessee fans out here. I mean, I've forgotten, like, I was so upset about that 2022 game that I forgot that Tennessee already got their revenge against South Carolina until I was researching some of the schedule. Completely forgot that Tennessee played against them after and won. But you know what? Is obviously, since I don't remember, it wasn't good enough. Tennessee needs to keep continuing to beat South Carolina up because I mean they've potentially kept Tennessee out of the national championship that season. So I mean, I don't know how long this hatred towards South Carolina is going to last for me, but it's still a thing.
Notice how Jordan paused there when he had an opportunity to say beat the Cox and then pulled back there. Um, no, you can say beat the Cox when it comes to South Carolina. So moving on, there's a bye week and it's on Halloween.
Oh,
I hate that the bye week is on Halloween because here's the deal. The last time Tennessee played a home game on Halloween was in 2009. We all remember it. It was the debut of the dark mode jerseys before dark mode was a thing. I was 7 years old at the time. Tennessee has played another game on Halloween since then. It was on, yeah, it was in 2015. And they went up to Kentucky, won pretty big. That was with Dobbs, and like Evan Berry had like one or two return touchdowns in that game. They won big. It was like 52-21 up there in Lexington. There's a bye week this year. Tennessee will not play another game on Halloween, potentially. We'll see if it's even a home game at that point until I think, in my late 30s.
oh man. So
Because
I'll be
it's
40 probably.
it's one of those things where the calendar, like you think it's going to be 1 year, but it like skips because of the leap year or something, so it's not going to be that year. It is a crying shame that Tennessee does not play a game on Halloween. I was really looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing a home game. I specifically wanted that Texas game on Halloween so you could get dark mode versus the all-white Texas jerseys. That would have been a cool uniform matchup, but we don't get it. That's one of my major complaints about this schedule for Tennessee.
Yeah, I forgot about that 2015 game because I remember a couple years before seeing that Tennessee was likely to play a game on Halloween. And of course, I jumped to conclusions hoping that Tennessee would resurrect the black uniforms for that. And of course, they didn't end up doing that until Josh Heupel got to Tennessee. And then they introduced the dark mode uniforms. But I mean, even though the Lane Kiffin like era like leaves a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth, that was one of the more exciting games for me as a fan of Tennessee. No one expected them to come out in those uniforms, and here we go. Like in 2026, it would have been a perfect opportunity to bring out dark modes again, especially with the introduction of Adidas is going to happen this year. I mean, I feel like I've forgotten about that personally, and like yeah, so Tennessee switching back to Adidas, they could have had an introduction of another version of dark mode jerseys that could be even crazier. Who knows? But I mean, I'm sure Tennessee will keep that around, but it's a shame that they can't do it on Halloween.
All right, moving on. Kentucky is at home the following week. You guys know what that's all about by this point. They're at Texas A&M, second weekend of November. Should be a fun game, as I mentioned already. Marcel Reed, the Tennessee native, going against the Vols. First time Tennessee will have been out there in 10 seasons. Of course, the last time was kind of the beginning of the end for Butch Jones. Unfortunately, a little bit of a sour taste there at the end, but should be a fun experience at the very least for those of you who decide to go out there. You got LSU at home, second to last week this season, which is kind of funny because that is the last time Tennessee played LSU at home. It was the second to last week this season. That was the week after Tennessee had fired Butch Jones, where Brady Hoke decided to kick off the second half in a monsoon, like the real rocket scientist that he is. Tennessee lost badly in that game. Tennessee had mailed in the season by that point. They're ready to hang it up. They're 4-6. You've gotten rid of Butch Jones, but no, there should be some excitement around this game just because of, like we discussed, Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm just now thinking about it now too. With that second being the second to last game of the season, I mean, there's playoff implications there too. So it may be even worse than 2021 if Lane Kiffin's pulling out shenanigans. Say like he does some similar stuff again and LSU ends up winning the game in a similar fashion. I mean, that's going to be chaotic out there. People will be losing their minds because Tennessee has to get a win over Lane Kiffin eventually. I mean, karma should eventually come back and bite him. And I'm hoping that this will be the season that it happens because you can't just stay focusing on Lane Kiffin forever. Got to move past it.
Yep. And then lastly, you've got Vanderbilt in Nashville. Again, you guys know what that's all about at this point. It's Vanderbilt. They are better than they were, but they're not going to have Diego Pavia next season. It'll be Jared Curtis in all likelihood instead. So we'll see what they look like to begin the season. But that is your 2026 Tennessee football schedule. I'm really looking forward to it. I think there's going to be a lot of tremendous matchups all across the board, not just in Tennessee's schedule, but in the SEC as well. Just looking at some of the different schedules that we've seen so far. But that's all we got on the schedule. Let's talk a little bit now about this bowl game. I guess who we can expect not to see in the bowl game. We're not going to do an in-depth preview this week. We will save that for next week. But looking at some of the decisions from Tennessee players in regard to the bowl game, we discussed already Jamal Wallace and Kellen Lindstrom entering the portal, if I'm not mistaken. Not that we were expecting to see those guys on the field, but they are in the portal or will be in the portal when it opens. Two more names that you should know that are about to enter the transfer portal. Brendan Ains, the linebacker who I think lived in Wisconsin and then moved to Tennessee, played high school football at Page. And then Marcus Gorey, the defensive back, he has also entered the transfer portal or will be entering the transfer portal. And those were two guys or four guys, really, if you include Wallace and Lindstrom, that just couldn't see the field at Tennessee. And it's one of those situations where you just say, hey, best of luck to you at your next stop. It's not like Nico or Boo where they're just pulling the rug from under you and trying to ruin some things along the way.
Yeah, I mean, they're just looking for a better opportunity, and I think they will find it elsewhere at Tennessee because everyone that you mentioned, they got combined. They have a combined total of 12 tackles, or at least this season being at Tennessee. So we didn't see too much from them. I mean, it's probably better off for them. I mean, for not only playing time, but if they want to go to the next level, if they have dreams of playing the NFL, it's probably the best case. I don't think it's going to hurt Tennessee too much, but best of luck to all those guys. And Boo Carter, too. Boo Carter, thankfully.
No, you don't wish good luck to Boo Carter.
No. And I'm not saying good luck to Boo Carter. I'm saying thankfully we don't have to deal with him in the game.
No, we're very glad Tennessee does not have to deal with Boo Carter. But those are your transfer portal entries at this moment. You've got a handful of opt-outs for the bowl game that we're going to discuss. We'll see if there are more that come out within the next few weeks. But so far, there are 3 of them for Tennessee. One of them, and I don't even know why we're considering this guy an opt-out because he hasn't played all season. But it makes sense that he's not going to play in this game. That is, of course, cornerback Jermon McCoy. He right now is looking like a first-round pick in the NFL draft, so good for him for doing that. And best of luck to him in the future. Just a shame that he was not able to come back this season just because of that injury he suffered in the offseason.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like McCoy is one of the bigger what-ifs in Tennessee football history, at least in recent memory, that is. I mean, because we saw how affected Tennessee's defense was without him on the field. But yeah, I mean, hopefully he goes in the first round, and that would be freaking awesome for him, man, especially because he's missed the entire season with an injury. I mean, I know modern surgery nowadays, people are able to recover from ACL injuries more often than they did in the past. And I think Adrian Peterson's injury like really changed a lot of how people view ACL injuries. So hopefully he can put things back together. But I mean, that just shows how dominant his junior season was. And unfortunately, it reminds Tennessee fans of what we missed this year with McCoy. But yeah, it's not a big deal that he was opting out. I mean, like you said, it wasn't really an opt-out to begin with. I don't think anyone's going to be upset with him not playing in this game.
Yeah. This is not an opt-out officially, but one that I am keeping an eye on potentially here as we close in on this bowl game would be Colton Hood, at corner as well. Right now, he is mocked by ESPN, or at least this latest one that I have, going 30th overall to the New England Patriots. So, would not be surprised if he opts out. Like, I saw him post some video on Twitter the other day, and he said, "This is not an announcement of me leaving or staying, just and I'm grateful for having played at Tennessee." Video. So again, we'll see what decision he makes in the future, but I would not be surprised if he does as well. But two more officially that we've got for you. First and foremost, wide receiver Chris Brazzell, which, by the way, congratulations to Chris Brazzell. He was named third team AP All-American today as wide receiver, so always love to see that. Put together a very productive season this season. Don't know why I said season and that close of proximity, but he goes for over 1,000 yards in 2024 or 2025, excuse me. First 1,000-yard receiver for Tennessee since, I guess, Jalen Hyatt. That would be, because you didn't have one in 2023. I don't think you had one in 2024 either, unless Squirrel managed to get up there. I think he would have only had. I
think he was like around 800 or something.
I was about to say he was not that high up. So very productive season for him, and a guy that you can hope translates to the next level. I'm sure many different NFL franchises would be interested in him as a day 2 draft pick.
Yeah, I think similarly with Brazzell. Like, I wrote in my notes that, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up in like a similar situation as Thornton did, like where he's probably not going to be a first round pick, but he's going to get picked up and probably end up playing his way into a starting rotation for the NFL. At least I would imagine. But yeah, props to Brazzell for, going to the NFL. He's helping try to get Tennessee's identity back as wide receiver U, because I know LSU and Ohio State's kind of stolen that thunder in recent memory. But hey, this year Tennessee had 3 receivers with 700 yards or more. And to my knowledge, I don't think there's any other college football program that done that this season. So things are looking a little positive from the wide receiver unit. And congratulations, Chris Brazzell.
One other opt-out that we know of at this point, and this is one that we weren't sure if he would stay or leave Tennessee in 2026. And sure enough, he left because he had a good enough draft grade, I guess, to where he made the decision to opt out of the bowl game and go to the NFL draft. And that is linebacker Arion Carter, who, again, many of us thought it was kind of 50-50. And then sure enough, he left this season. But looking back at his career at Tennessee, he was kind of thrown into the fire his freshman season, struggled a little bit, and then, of course, he got injured and was out for the final, I guess, 3 games of the season in 2023. Good year in 2024. 2025 had some good moments, but unfortunately dealt with some injuries there on the back end of the season. So, but overall, I think a guy that you remember fondly at Tennessee. And not only that, the fact that he's an in-state recruit, and the fact that he was the first of what is hopefully many high-level linebacker recruits that are coming to Tennessee. Because since Arion Carter, you have seen, as we have said time and time again, an uptick in the amount of 4-star and in some cases borderline 5-star linebacker recruits coming to Tennessee.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he ends up doing in the NFL. I was a little skeptical, wondering if he was even going to leave after the season, considering that he dealt with the injury issues. But somehow, like, I was surprised seeing this, that he was voted second team All SEC by the coaches voters on there, even with missing the games. And he has like that alpha dog mentality, kind of like similar to another Tennessee player that I enjoyed watching back in the day, like Jawan Jennings. And you tend to like those players that are good vocal leaders that will light a fire under a team, and I feel like that's what Arion Carter is. Now, as far as his draft stock goes, I feel like the injuries are going to hurt him a little bit, especially since he's coming after his junior season. I don't know if he goes until like maybe later, day 2, maybe day 3. But I think once he gets in the system, he's one of those guys that can work his way into a rotation. Just solely, mainly because of his leadership and everything. You need guys like that on the team. You need a smart middle linebacker that can make some adjustments and, do the little things right. And I think that he's proven time and time again that he's a hard worker. And I think that he's going to work his way into the NFL roster and get some playing time in the future. But I don't know. I don't think he's going to start off the bat.
Yeah. Yeah. And with Arion Carter, I think you're probably looking at a high level, or excuse me, not high level, early day 3 pick. That would be my guess for Arion Carter next season in the NFL draft. So should be another guy that gets drafted for this team. The other one that I'm kind of wondering about at this point that could potentially opt out is Lance Hurd, because he had a pretty tremendous season this year. A big step in the right direction for him. Is that enough for some NFL scouts to look at him and say that's, maybe a day 2 or day 3 pick, early day 3 pick potentially? So again, we'll see with him and Colton Hood down the stretch. I feel like Hood is more likely than Hurd at this point to opt out and declare for the draft. But you've got a handful of guys on this team that are probably going to end up getting drafted in this class, at least 4 or 5 of them. So that's all exciting stuff. One more thing we do need to discuss before we get out of here in regard to next season is this quarterback situation. Because there's been some news today developing for the first time in a while about some notable entries into the transfer portal. And Tennessee could pursue some of these guys if Joey Aguilar doesn't get his eligibility. A part of me doesn't really want Joey Aguilar to get another year of eligibility just because of the Pandora's box that's opening with this thing. I think, shutting down the Pavia precedent would be nice. If Tennessee decided to do that, because think about what they had this year. Other than Aguilar, you had Miles Kitselman, and just as far as guys that have played JUCO and not really been able to succeed, or had not been in college long enough. I should say that's what I'm trying to say. He had not been in college long enough to where he had used up all 4 years of eligibility, and he didn't exactly have a breakout season this year for Tennessee. So a part of me kind of wishes that thing would shut at some point, even though I think if you were able to pair Joey with say, Braylon Staley and Mike Matthews and whoever else will be in at the 3rd spot next year, that's probably Radarius Jackson or Travis Smith. We'll find out in the bowl game for sure, but that would be a fun combo. But again, it's all pending legal matters here. So there's a few different names in the transfer portal that have caught people's attention. I don't really think Tennessee is going to pursue more than potentially one of them, but I do feel like at this point you have to pursue somebody out of the portal.
Yeah, as far as the portal goes, I saw Cincinnati's quarterback. I think his name's Sorsby. I saw him getting thrown around, and I looked at his stats, and they're pretty good. But my problem with the transfer portal here is, Tennessee hasn't really developed any quarterbacks of their own. It's been a revolving door of rent-a-center quarterbacks where you get them for 1 season, maybe 2, and then they're off to the NFL because they're coming to schools from other schools. So I would love to see Tennessee develop a guy like George McIntyre or like Faison Brandon and plan for the future because, whether or not Tennessee wins the national championship under Josh Heupel's one thing, but one thing that I've always enjoyed as a Tennessee fan is going back and reflecting on some of the great players. You won't always win all these games, but you can appreciate some of the players. Now, Hendon Hooker is an outlier in what I'm about to say because he was so exceptionally well at Tennessee, but I feel like the more Joey Aguilars and people that you get shoehorned into here, the less you look back with fond memories. And I will look at this season with fond memories to an extent because I think Tennessee overcame a lot of adversity, but I want to see Tennessee build up a quarterback that can be the future. And I don't know if you can get a national championship caliber team if you have a new quarterback each year. So hopefully, if I was Tennessee in the transfer portal, I don't know if I would target Cincinnati's quarterback, even though he has good stats, because I think it might sway some of these other high highly rated recruits, it might convince them to want to transfer. So my hope is if Tennessee does go in the transfer portal, which I think they do need to for a quarterback, I hope that they get a guy that can be like a clear-cut good backup quarterback, not a guy that they're trying to move into the starting rotation.
See, Jordan, the problem with that is you just can't sell guys on being the insurance plan, which is a big part of the reason why they went out and got Joey. And I guess they called it a competition between him and Merklinger, but we all kind of figured Joey would be the guy going in. Like it wasn't going to happen with Jake Merklinger. And by the way, I'm kind of surprised he's not declared intent to enter the transfer portal at this point, just because based on what we have seen, I don't think Tennessee can win at a high level with Jake Merklinger playing quarterback, just to be completely honest, which is, again, why you need somebody in the portal. If Joey doesn't get that year of eligibility from the courts, which he may not, it is what it is. And if Merklinger transfers, then you are stuck with George McIntyre and Faison Brandon as your scholarship quarterbacks. I guess you have Mason Phillips as a walk-on, but that's all you're working with. And they're talented quarterbacks, don't get me wrong, but I think – with the portal at this point, like you're just looking to bridge the gap. And I think that's what you want to do here. And it's funny you mentioned that, winning national championships with a 1-year deal for a quarterback is not sustainable because Ohio State literally just did that. But
oh, well, yeah, good point.
yeah. And, Indiana could potentially do that this year too, if Fernando Mendoza leads them to the ship. So, we'll see how that goes. But no, I think Swordsby is the most likely one just because apparently his family lives in Knoxville.
Yeah.
Like I heard that. So that could be a big get for Tennessee if they decide to go that route and get somebody out of the portal. I think it would do both McIntyre and Faison well to just like sit a year and get some reps and garbage time against Furman and Kennesaw State. Early on in the season next year, but and then just open up that quarterback composition in 2027, see what you got between those two. So I just don't know if they're ready yet because we just haven't seen enough of George McIntyre in the game. And of course, Faison is coming straight out of high school. But as for the other quarterbacks, like DJ Lagway's not being linked to Tennessee. I don't think he was going to get linked to Tennessee in the first place. Dylan Raiola, I can't tell you why, but I just don't feel like he would be a very good fit in the system for Tennessee. Oddly, Texas Tech is not an option for him out of Nebraska, which is kind of strange considering his whole thing is literally just a Patrick Mahomes cosplay. Like it's going to be Miami or Oregon. I have a feeling with Dylan Raiola. That's what's going to end up happening there. There's one other that I'm missing, and I'm drawing a blank on who it is that's just entered the portal. Sam Levitt, that's who it is.
Oh yeah.
I don't see that one happening either for Tennessee. Like not to say that quarterbacks shouldn't be able to work with Josh Heupel. Like his system is very quarterback friendly, as we saw with Joey Aguilar this season, and then with Hendon Hooker in 2022 and in 2021, of course, just bringing in a guy out of the portal who had been a little turnover prone and kind of rectifying his game a little bit. But again, there are some guys who just don't mesh well. See Nico and I guess Joe a little bit, who are just not as productive in the system. So I don't know if any of those guys that I mentioned that I don't think would be fits would in fact not be fits, but just based on what I've seen, I don't know how well they would fit into the offense and just not playing hero ball as much.
Well, I was just thinking now, I mean, maybe Tennessee could. I mean, if George McIntyre truly believes in himself, and I'm assuming that Faison Brandon does, maybe they will stay intact, even if Tennessee does get a top tier like transfer quarterback, just because they have so much belief in themselves. And then you worry about where they go after the season. Just hope that you can retain all three guys for this year and then worry after the fact. And then maybe it can help them in the competition too. Maybe, like they're trying to work a little extra harder in practice because they know that Josh Heupel tends to favor the transfer quarterbacks with more experience. But who knows? I just want to see Tennessee develop a quarterback eventually that we can look at like through the same lens as some of these other great quarterbacks that came through Tennessee, like Casey Clausen or like an Eric Ainge or something like that. And like I said, we kind of got that with Hendon Hooker because he ended up staying for 2 years. But man, like I want to see records be broken. I want to see Tennessee have build success from the ground up. But I mean, if Tennessee goes out and wins a national championship with the transfer quarterback, then I'll shut up and I'll never say that ever again. But until that happens, I'm gonna keep my same thought process.
Yeah. Again, I just think next year is something that you got to bridge with a little bit, and there's certain reasons why I'm kind of looking at next year as I'm not going to call it another rebuild year because that's not what Tennessee fans want to hear. But there, in some regards, is going to be somewhat of a rebuild going on just because you've got a new defensive coordinator that may take some getting used to, as we discussed at the beginning of the show, and you're going to have a new wide receiver one, probably either Braylon Staley or Mike Matthews. I would think it's Staley at this point. Offensive line, if Hurd leaves, then I think you're going to have some challenges there at tackle a little bit. You're going to have to get new personnel in the secondary and then on the defensive line as well, despite the fact that it's not super deep. So there will be some elements of next season that I think Tennessee will be rebuilding in a little bit. And I hate saying this too, but just with the way this schedule is, just to tie in another thing that we discussed earlier on in the show, and it's going to be this way for everybody. Get used to 7-5, 8-4, and 9-3 most years. That's just how it is now. There's no shelter of divisions anymore, and there's 9 games in conference play. You're not getting that additional group of 5 FBS game in whatever point in the season you play that game, November, September, whenever that is. So it's going to be tougher for everybody. You have to keep that in mind.
Yeah, and I'm just now thinking about it now. Maybe the new SEC schedule starts to fix some of the playoff issues that we've been having going on. I mean, because there's been like way too many like 10-2 teams, fringe teams that you could make an argument that could be going to the playoff, should be going to the playoffs this year, but are not. Like the first team that comes to mind is like Vanderbilt. I mean, I feel like if Tennessee went 10-2, more than likely they would find a way to put Tennessee in there, possibly. But I mean, if teams are struggling to win more than 7 games in the SEC because there's more parity, more competition, then that could be better for determining who the true best team is in college football.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one thing we're going to see here in the next few years is just with the schedule, it's going to separate from the men from the boys in the SEC. And again, there are no easy way outs in this thing. You could look at some schedules and say some are easier than others. There's not a truly easy schedule in this league anymore because you don't have the teams like, say, Georgia. We have a Georgia fan in the comments here. Dodging Alabama in the regular season every single year because that's what they did for a long time up until the last couple seasons. They would only play in the playoffs, which is a crying shame. That game should be played in the regular season way more. I'm glad that the SEC has done that. They're going to be playing 3 years in a row with the game next season. But you just don't have that shelter of divisions anymore. Like the teams like the Kentuckys, the South Carolinas, and the Missouris of the world are really going to have to adapt to this. Because those are teams that would feast on, say, Tennessee and or Florida being down. That'd be the end of the Mark Richt era at Georgia. Like some of those teams would, like South Carolina in particular, and I think on one occasion Missouri beat Georgia as well. So, like, those teams, they were able to get their 10-win seasons out when they could in the mid-2010s. They're not going to be able to do it anymore.
No, it's going to be a tough road for some of the schools that have already struggled in the SEC. I do anticipate that it's going to get much worse for them because you look at like Kentucky and stuff in like years past, or like Vanderbilt until like this season, a lot of their wins were against teams like Elon or something like that. Like you're gonna have one less of those games per year. So hopefully they can schedule their out of conference games accordingly because it is going to be rough having to play against 9 SEC teams. That's not easy for anyone. That's not easy for Alabama. That's not easy for Georgia. I mean, everyone's going to have problems with this new schedule.
All right. Well, that's about all I have for tonight, Jordan. Anything else that you would like to impart on us?
The only other thing was like, Tennessee had a couple of award winners going
Yeah.
on. I have here that Sean Bishop, second team All SEC at the coaches poll. Chris Brazel, also first team All SEC, All America, third team, as we mentioned earlier. You got Arian Carter, as I mentioned earlier, that was All SEC second team. Lance Hurd cracked in there, third team for the coaches and All SEC. Colton Hood was on the list, Wendell Moe, Jesse Perry, like three offensive linemen on there. Oh, four offensive linemen, David Sanders too. And then even Edwin Spillman, Ty Redmond got some love too. So it's good seeing all these Tennessee guys, being all SEC caliber players, or like in Braylon Staley's case, being a freshman of the year. It's pretty cool seeing Tennessee win those awards, especially considering there was no playoffs this year and there's a lot of disappointments. You can at least be happy with some of the results these players had on the field.
Yeah, and if you're stacking up accolades here, Braylon Staley, Ty Redmond, Edwin Spillman, and Jesse Perry, all named to the first team freshman All-American per The Athletic. Redmond on the first team as well. So Redmond, that's a guy that I have really high hopes for here in the future. A guy that was not super highly rated out of high school, so it's not like a Boo Carter situation where he's just chasing money left and right. But a guy that went through a lot this year, and I think he's going to be coming out a lot better in 2026 and 27 as a result.
Yeah, especially with all the experience he got this year. I mean, he's a true freshman, but not just that, because he was a freshman, he was getting targeted left and right. So he got more reps than a lot of corners, I feel like, get. Especially, I mean, he didn't always win every time, but more often than not, he was getting the job done. You only imagine as the years go by, he's going to get better and better, especially at this experience. And who knows, maybe he can get so great, be so great that people will stop throwing his way, because man, that was my biggest disappointment my first season watching Tennessee football, thinking that Eric Berry had a chance to win a Heisman, to teams not throwing anywhere near him at all that entire 2009 season. That's the best compliment you can get as a defensive back. So hopefully Ty Redmond can get to that point.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that'll do it for us tonight here on Tennessee Volunteers Live. Again, glad to have all of you guys along for the ride with us. We appreciate you guys as always. Please like, share, and subscribe to Tennessee at the Voice of College Football. We are live every Monday at 8 Eastern time here on YouTube. Again, appreciate it. Appreciate all the support. We would love it if you would subscribe, share it to a friend, share it to a rival fan, as again, we have other fans who watch us, Ohio State fans, plenty from what we've noticed. And then apparently tonight we got more Georgia fans. We have some Alabama fans that watch us too.
Yeah, and some Florida ones too. I want them to hear what I have to say.
Yeah. We welcome all the fan bases. Just don't be too hard on us, especially with some of our guests. Like, I know the Ohio State fans were ripping my buddy Dan Harrelson to shreds when we had him on the other week. Like, that was so unwarranted. Don't be doing that. But we appreciate all of you guys. And as far as future scheduling, I should mention this as well, as we've got some wrinkles in the schedule. I'm working to try and finalize a deal to get an Illinois guest on the show next week, just to try and preview the matchup. We haven't done any intensive previews, but because we had a lot of time in between now and then, we don't have to. And then 2 weeks after that, or I guess just 1 week after that, 2 weeks from tonight, we will actually not be doing a live show, because the day after that is the Music City Bowl. So we will just be coming to you post-game that week. So wanted to make those programming notes now. We'll mention them again as we get closer to those days. But for now, for Jordan Binkley, I am Tucker Harlan. We will talk to you guys again next Monday.
College football is even more exciting when you've got some action on the line, and the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread, and I've got a 40-plus year track record. 11-0 in the college football playoff for me last year against the money line, 8-3 against the spread. And I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill of Wager Talk is our ace in the hole, show stopper. 7 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick. 28-12 against the spread the last 3 years. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Corey Bratta, Matt Zemek, and Steve Dace. Check out those numbers. Become a YouTube or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and then select a betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2025 a winner now.